The market of shame, the alien market, was loud and full of colors. Creatures from many planets moved between the stalls, buying food, tools, and strange items. The air smelled like metal, spices, and oil. But in the middle of the noise stood a very small girl. Her skin was pale blue. Her arms were thin. Her eyes looked tired. She held a broken toy in her hands, a little music orb that no longer worked. Her name was Lyra. She was only 14 cycles old, which was very young for her species. She had no family left. Her parents were taken by sickness during a storm. Season 2 years ago. Since then, she had been alone. She cleaned ships and carried bags just to get food. She never asked for help. She stayed quiet and tried to disappear in the crowd. But today, someone saw her and laughed. His name was Drav. He was big, with hard black armor growing from his skin. His species loved power. They respected only strength and size. And he hated weakness. So when he saw Lyra standing near the water pump, he walked up and pushed her away with his arm. "Move, runt," he said. "Or are you waiting for someone to carry you?" Lyra didn't speak. She just looked down and stepped aside. But Drav didn't stop. "You don't belong here. This market is for workers, not broken dolls." Some aliens near them laughed. Others looked away. No one helped. No one said a word. Drav looked at the broken orb in her hand. "Is that trash yours? Figures?" "Only garbage for garbage." He slapped the orb from her hands. It rolled across the floor and cracked even more. Lyra gasped and ran after it. She knelt down and picked it up gently, even though it was now just a broken shell. She didn't cry. She never cried in public. But her hands were shaking. Then a voice came from behind the crowd. "Pick it up." The voice was quiet, calm, but cold like a blade. Drav turned around, confused. "What?" "Pick it up," the voice said again. "You dropped something. Pick it up and give it back." The crowd parted slowly. A human man walked through. He wore dark clothes and heavy boots. His eyes were calm but focused. His name was Jace. He had come to this planet a few weeks ago, fixing broken engines and selling tools. No one really paid attention to him until now, Drav growled. "This is not your matter, human. Go fix your broken machines." Jace didn't stop walking. "You hurt a child. You mocked her. Now give her toy back." Drav laughed and stepped forward. "She's nothing. Weak. Useless. Who cares?" Jace stopped only a few feet away from him. "I care." The market went silent. No one had ever stood up to Drav, and now this small, plain-looking human was doing it without fear. Lyra stared in shock. No one had ever defended her before. Drav clenched his fists. "Do you want to fight me for her? Is that it?" Jace looked at Lyra, then back at Drav. "No, I don't want to fight. I just want you to stop." Drav stepped forward, ready to strike. But Jace didn't flinch. He stood still like a mountain. His calm was dangerous. His silence was louder than any shout. "Or what?" Drav asked. Jace tilted his head. "Or I make you." There was something in Jace's eyes that made Drav stop. Not fear, but understanding. He realized this human had seen battle. Real war. And he was not afraid of pain. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Drav stepped back. He spit on the ground and walked away, his pride wounded but his body untouched. The crowd began to whisper. Some looked at Jace with surprise. Others nodded. In quiet respect, Jace turned to Lyra. He picked up the cracked toy and handed it to her. "It's not fixed," he said softly, "but maybe it still matters." Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. "Next time," Jace said, "don't let him push you. You're not nothing." Then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd. But Lyra stood there, holding her broken toy like it was gold. For the first time in years, someone had seen her. Someone had spoken for her. And in her small heart, something new began to grow. Hope. And far above the market, in the shadows of the towers, others had watched too. And they were not pleased. The human had interfered. And now things would change. Forever. Asterisk. Why the human cares? Jace didn't look back after walking away. The crowd behind him slowly returned to normal, but whispers about the human began to spread across the market. He had done something no one else dared. Stood up against Draft. But to Jace, it wasn't about attention. It was something deeper. Something he had carried with him for a long time. He returned to his small workshop near the old landing station. It was quiet there, filled with wires, broken machines, and tools. Jace liked it that way. He liked fixing things because it gave him control, something he had lost long ago on another planet, in another war, when a small girl had died because no one helped her. Including him. Her name had been Syrah. She wasn't his daughter. She wasn't even family. But she had followed him around the military base like a shadow. Her people had been displaced during a planetary invasion. She had no one, just like Lyra. Jace had given her food once. She'd smiled at him. That smile had stayed with him, but when the base was attacked, he couldn't find her. He never saw her again. The guilt never left him. That's why, when he saw Lyra being pushed and mocked, something inside him snapped. It felt like Syrah's eyes were watching him again, asking, "Will you help this time?" He had no choice. His hands had moved before his mind did. That night, as he was fixing a damaged power cell, he heard a soft sound outside his workshop. At first, he thought it was just wind. But then came another sound, bare feet on metal steps. He walked outside and saw her Lyra. She was standing in the shadows, holding the broken orb close to her chest. Her big eyes looked up at him with confusion and fear. "I'm not here to steal," she said quickly. "I just wanted to see if—" "You're real," Jace sighed. "I'm real. Just not very friendly sometimes." She smiled a little, then looked down. No one's ever done that before. No one ever told him to stop. "You shouldn't have to live like that," Jace said. "People should treat you better." "I'm small. I'm quiet. No one sees me," she whispered. "But you did." He didn't know what to say, so he opened the door. "You want something to eat?" She nodded. Inside, he gave her a small bowl of warm broth. She ate slowly, carefully, like someone not used to having meals. "Why did you help me?" she asked after a while. Jace looked at her and paused before answering. "Because once I didn't, and I live with that every day." She didn't ask what he meant. She just nodded like she understood. He leaned back. "That orb, what does it mean to you?" "It was my brother's. He gave it to me before he left to find work. He never came back. I don't know if he's alive, but this is all I have left." Jace took the broken orb from her hands and turned it in his palm. "Maybe I can fix it." Her eyes lit up. "You can?" "Maybe," he said. "No promises, but I'll try." Lyra smiled again, a real smile this time. Not just with her lips, but her eyes too. For the first time in years, Jace felt something soft in his chest. He didn't say it, but deep inside, he made a quiet promise. "This time, I won't fail." Later that night, after Lyra had fallen asleep in a corner of the workshop, wrapped in an old blanket, Jace worked on the orb. He opened it with careful hands, cleaned the damaged wires, and replaced the cracked sound chip. It was an old model, not worth much, but to her, it was priceless. As he worked, he thought about what the world had become. Aliens treated each other based on strength and looks. The weak were stepped on. The small were forgotten. It was the same on every planet. But maybe, just maybe, one small act of kindness could create a wave. Maybe Lyra was the beginning, and Jace? He would be the shield until she learned to fight for herself. Because now, he cared, and he wasn't going anywhere. Asterisk the human's unexpected strength. The next morning, the sun rose behind the towers of steel and stone. The market was alive again, full of voices, footsteps, and tension. But something felt different. The story of the human who stood up to Drav had spread fast. Many didn't believe it at first. A few even laughed. A human? Against Drav? But when Drav returned, his silence said everything. His pride was bruised. His steps were heavy. And his eyes burned with quiet rage. He didn't forget the look in Jace's eyes. Calm, unshaken. It wasn't normal. Drav had fought many before. He had broken bones and crushed spirits. But the human didn't even blink. That scared him more than he would ever admit. Now, he wanted revenge, not through surprise, but by proving to everyone that the human was weak. That his strength was fake. Drav waited at the center of the market. He stood in front of a large metal table used by builders to test weight and control. He slammed his hand down and shouted, "Jace, if you're brave enough, come prove it." People turned. Whispers started. Some ran to find the human. He heard the noise while helping Lyra repair a power rod. She looked up at him, afraid. "It's Drav. He's calling you up." Jace put down the tool slowly. "I figured this would happen. You don't have to go," she said. He gave her a small smile. "Yes, I do." When Jace arrived, the market was already full. Dozens of aliens had gathered to see the challenge. Some expected a fight. Others thought it would end in seconds. Drav pointed at the table. No weapons. No tricks. Strength against strength. Prove yourself or admit you're just a mouth. Jace walked forward and rolled up his sleeves. "Fine, but I don't play by your rules." The table test wasn't just about lifting. It was a trial of control, how long someone could hold a heavy object, how they moved with balance, and how steady they stayed under pressure. Drav went first. He picked up a large weighted block and held it in place above his head. His muscles strained and his teeth clenched. Everyone cheered as the timer ticked. 60 seconds. Impressive. Then Jay stepped up. He didn't flex. He didn't shout. He simply lifted the block and held it with calm focus. His arms didn't shake. His breathing stayed steady. 60 seconds passed. Then 70. Then 80. People stopped talking. Even Drav's supporters were confused. Jace gently placed the block back down and looked at Drav. "I'm not strong like you. I'm just strong enough to not break." Someone clapped, then another. Slowly, the market began to cheer, not loud. Not wild but real. Drav's face darkened. "You got lucky," he muttered. He shook his head. "No, you rely on fear. I rely on purpose." Before anyone could speak again, Lyra walked out of the crowd. Her small steps were quiet, but her voice was clear. "He didn't fight for glory. He fought for me, and he won." Drav looked at her and scoffed. "You think anyone cares what a weak girl says?" But now, the crowd was not laughing. People were watching Lyra not with pity, but with curiosity. Some even with respect. Jace stood beside her. "Say it again," he told her softly. Lyra raised her head and said louder, "He fought for me, and I'm not weak anymore." That moment changed everything. For years, the market had been a place of silence and fear. But today, a human and a small alien girl had broken that. Not with weapons, not with war, but with courage. Drav walked away. Humiliated. No one stopped him. No one cheered for him. Jace turned to Lyra. "You were brave." "I was scared," she said. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear," Jace replied. "It's doing what's right, even when you're afraid." She looked up at him, eyes full of something new. Not just hope, but fire. From that day forward, the market remembered what happened, not because of the test, but because of the lesson. Real strength isn't loud. It stands quietly, even when the world tries to silence it. And now, Lyra knew she wasn't alone anymore. She follows him home. Lyra had never followed anyone before. She always stayed in the shadows, hiding from loud voices and angry hands. But now, something inside her was different. After the challenge at the market, after the human lifted the heavy block like it was nothing and made Drav walk away, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Jace. He didn't act like the others. He didn't shout. He didn't try to impress anyone. And yet, people listened to him. Even Drav backed down. That kind of strength confused Lyra. It wasn't the kind of strength her world taught power through fear. Jace had something else. Something quiet, but strong. So when he left the market, she followed. He walked through the old metal paths near the edge of the city, passing broken signs and rusted towers. His workshop was in a forgotten corner, small, full of dust and machines that made strange noises. He opened the door, stepped inside, and closed it behind him. Lyra waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. She sat on a crate, hugging her knees, wondering what she was even doing there. Maybe he didn't want her around. Maybe he would tell her to go away. But still, she stayed. Suddenly, the door opened again. Jay stepped out, holding a small bowl of warm food. He didn't speak. He just handed it to her, then leaned against the wall. "You hungry?" She nodded. He watched her eat in silence. "You've been following me." She looked down. "Sorry. Why?" She didn't answer at first, then said, "I wanted to understand. Why did you help me? Why risk so much for someone like me?" Jace looked at the sky. "Because someone once needed my help and I did nothing. I won't make that mistake again." Lyra stared at him. "Do you always help strangers?" "No," he said. "Only the ones everyone else forgets." That night, Jace didn't ask her to leave. He brought out a small blanket and let her sleep inside the workshop. It was cold, but she felt safe. For the first time in her life, she wasn't scared of the dark. Over the next few days, Lyra kept coming back. She cleaned the floor, organized wires, and even tried to fix a few machines. She didn't know much, but Jace was patient. He taught her how to connect power cells, how to check circuits, and how to use a small welding tool. "Machines are like people," he told her. "Treat them with care, and they'll work for you." She smiled. "Then I've met a lot of broken people." He chuckled. "Me too." One afternoon, while they were fixing a small heater, Lyra said something that surprised even her. "I used to think I was born wrong." Jace looked up. "Why?" "Because I'm small. I don't fight. I don't shout. Everyone says I'm useless." He wiped his hands and sat beside her. "Being small doesn't make you weak. Not speaking doesn't mean you have no voice. It just means you've been waiting for the right time to use it." Lyra stared at the heater. "You think I can be strong?" "I think," he said, "you already are." Those words stayed with her. She repeated them in her head while sweeping, while eating, even while sleeping. Each time, they felt a little more real. One morning, she woke up before Jace and quietly began repairing the broken music orb he had fixed halfway. She copied his techniques, using wires and old parts. When he woke up, he found her holding the glowing orb. It lit up gently and soft music played. He smiled. "Looks like my student's learning fast." "I want to learn everything," she said, "so I can stand on my own." He nodded. "Then we'll start today." From that moment on, Lyra trained harder. Not just fixing machines, but training her body. Jay showed her how to stay balanced, how to move with speed instead of force. She wasn't strong like Drav, but she was quick, smart, and careful. And more than anything, she had courage now. The girl who once hid in corners was changing. Bit by bit, step by step. Not because someone saved her, but because someone believed in her. And she began to believe too. But in the shadows of the city, not everyone was happy. Drav had not forgotten, and he was planning something far worse than insults or challenges, something that would test both the human and the girl who dared to stand beside him. Asterisk, the second attack, the wind was strange that morning. It carried dust but also tension, like the air knew something was coming. Lyra felt it too. She had just finished connecting wires to a small solar panel when her hands froze. Her chest felt tight. It was the same feeling she had the day her brother never returned. Something wasn't right. Inside the workshop, Jace was repairing a broken energy core. He noticed her silence. "You okay?" She didn't answer at first, then whispered, "He's coming." Jace stood slowly. He didn't ask who. He already knew. Drav had stayed quiet for too long. And men like Drav didn't forget. They waited. They plotted. They struck when others felt safe. And now, Lyra felt safe for the first time in her life. Drav wanted to destroy that. Jace closed the panel he was working on and handed Lyra a small metal piece. "Time to test what you've learned." They didn't have to wait long. Just before the sun reached the top of the towers, heavy footsteps echoed through the metal streets. Lyra peeked through the broken blinds. Her blood ran cold. Drav was back, and he wasn't alone. 3 others walked with him. One carried a long shock rod. Another had a flame stick. The last one looked quiet but had armor across his arms. They weren't here to argue. They came to break. Jace stepped outside calmly. Lyra followed, her heart racing. Drav stopped a few feet away. His voice was sharp. "Still playing protector, human?" Jace didn't move. "Still picking fights with children?" Drav's lip curled. "She made you soft. You should have left her alone. Now you both lose." Jace looked at Lyra. She stood close, hands shaking. "Remember what I told you," he said softly. "Fear means you care. Courage means you stay." Drav didn't wait for more words. He nodded, and his men rushed forward. The first came fast with the shock rod. Jace ducked low, grabbed his arm, and twisted. The rod dropped. A swift kick sent the attacker to the ground. The second swung the flame stick. Jace jumped back, but the fire grazed his sleeve. He tore it off, then tackled the attacker and rolled him to the side. But the third man was different. He waited, watched, then moved, straight toward Lyra. She stepped back, her legs trembling. Her mind screamed to run, but Jace's voice echoed. In her head, "You're not nothing." She reached behind her belt and pulled out the small tool Jace had given her. It wasn't a weapon, but it could stop someone if aimed right. The armored alien reached for her. She dodged to the left and stabbed the tool into a soft gap near his waist. Electricity sparked. The alien cried out and fell to his knees. Lyra gasped. She had done it. She had defended herself. Drav watched, furious. He charged toward Jace, fists raised. This was not a test. This was not a public challenge. This was an ambush, but Jace didn't back down. He moved like water, fast, smooth, controlled. Drav was all rage. Jace was focus. They clashed. Metal hit skin. Fists struck armor. Dust rose around them. Lyra watched in horror as Jace took a hard punch to the ribs. He fell, coughing. Drav raised his foot to stomp, but Lyra ran forward and shouted, "Stop!" Drav turned. She stood between them. "You want me? Here I am." Drav paused. "Move." "No," she said. "You call me weak." "But I stood. You needed help." "I didn't. That makes me stronger." The market had begun to gather. Faces appeared. Behind crates, windows, rooftops. They heard her. Drav stepped back, confused. He saw the crowd, the attention. And he hated it. He growled and turned away. This isn't over. He and his broken men disappeared down the alley. Lyra turned to Jace. He was hurt, but smiling. You did it, he said. Her lips trembled. I was so scared. He touched her shoulder. That's what made it real. That day the city whispered. A new name. Not just Jace the human, but Lyra the girl who stood between power and fear. And chose to face it, together. They were changing everything. The rise of Lyra. The sun looked different that morning. Brighter, softer. Like the sky itself had seen what happened the day before and now wanted to honor it. Lyra stood outside the workshop, holding a small metal ring she had made herself. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. A simple energy sensor, her first full build without Jace's help. Her fingers ran over its edges as she remembered the moment she stood in front of Drav. That fear. That voice. That strength. Something inside her had changed, and the city noticed. That day when she entered the market, no one laughed. No one shoved her. No one kicked her basket or mocked her voice. Some stared. Others looked away, ashamed. A few nodded with quiet respect. She passed Drav's usual spot, now empty. He hadn't returned since the fight. His absence was louder than any words. Lyra walked with her back straight, her step steady. Not because she was trying to prove something, but because she finally believed something Jace had told her. She mattered. Jace watched her from the distance. He leaned against a post, arms crossed, but a quiet smile on his face. He had seen this transformation before, in war, in peace, in broken places. But seeing it in Lyra so young, so brave, meant something deeper. Back at the workshop, Lyra began taking on bigger tasks. She fixed a client's navigation scanner on her own. She helped a young alien boy find his missing battery pack. She even taught 2 street kids how to fix a broken solar fan using scraps. Word spread, not about Jace this time, but about her. She's the one who faced Drav. She's the girl who fixes machines and protects kids. She's not afraid. Jace didn't take credit. He didn't step in. He simply supported her from behind the scenes, answering when she had questions, helping when she got stuck. But more and more, she didn't need him as much. And he liked that. One evening, as the sky turned golden, Lyra returned with a small bag of food. For you, she said, placing it in front of Jace. He raised an eyebrow. What's this? Payment, she said proudly. I fixed 3 units today. Got paid in food and credits. He grinned. Looks like I'm losing my best helper. She smiled too. No, just growing up. They sat in silence for a while, sharing a simple meal. Then Lyra looked up. Why do you always stay in the background? Jace took a breath. Because it's not about me. It never was. People need to see you. You're their hope now. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. What if I mess up? You will, Jay said without pause, and that's okay. Being strong doesn't mean being perfect. It means getting back up. She nodded slowly. Those words wrapped around her. Heart like armor. That night, she couldn't sleep. So she stepped outside, standing under the stars. The wind was soft, carrying the distant sound of machines, laughter, and life. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." The next day brought a surprise. A small group of alien children waited outside the workshop. One of them, a girl with green skin and wide ears, stepped forward. "We heard you teach," she said shyly. "Can you teach us too?" Lyra blinked, then smiled. "Yes, come in." By the time Jace returned from the supply yard, 4 children sat around Lyra, learning how to solder a simple circuit board. She stood tall, explaining slowly, guiding their hands. Jace didn't say anything. He just watched. This was the real rise, not a battle, not a challenge, but a change. Lyra was becoming a leader, one who didn't ask for power but earned it through kindness, skill, and courage. Later, Jace handed her a small metal badge he had found long ago in a forgotten war zone. It was old, with marks of a fallen unit. "This used to belong to a commander," he said. "She was small like you." Everyone ignored her until she changed the course of a war. Lyra took it in her hands. What happened to her? She survived, Jace said, because she never gave up. Lyra pinned it to her belt, not for show, but to remind herself every day of who she was becoming. And somewhere, in the dark corners of the city, others were watching, not just friends, but enemies too. Because when someone rises, someone always wants to pull them back down, and the final test was coming. Asterisk. The message to the galaxy news travels fast in a place where everyone feels small. And when one of the smallest stands tall, the news becomes more than just talk, it becomes a spark. That spark was now Lyra across the city. People were no longer whispering her name. They were saying it out loud. Children ran to her for help. Market traders offered her tools instead of insults. Even the station guards, who once ignored her, now nodded with respect. But respect is not always safe. In the higher levels of the city, where the wealthy and powerful watched everything from behind clear glass and smooth walls, Lyra's rise was not seen as progress, it was seen as a problem. If a human and a broken girl can turn the lower rings against fear, one elder hissed, then what else will they dare next? A message was sent, a warning, meant to silence, meant to end what had begun, but they were too late, because Lyra was no longer just a girl, she was a voice. That voice reached every corner of the city. When a local news chip showed a simple clip, Lyra, standing beside Jace, teaching young aliens how to fix an energy cell. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't fighting. She was leading. And the galaxy was watching. At first, it was just small transmissions messages from nearby planets. Who is this girl? She stood up to the feared ones? She learned from a human? Then came the questions that mattered. Can we do the same? Are we stronger than we were told? Lyra didn't ask for this attention. She just kept working, kept teaching, kept showing others what quiet courage looked like. Jace saw the shift too. He watched from the shadows like always, but with a sense of quiet pride. He had been many things in his life, a soldier, a drifter, a man with ghosts in his heart. But this was the first time he felt peace. Lyra had become the future he never thought he'd live to see. But peace rarely lasts. One afternoon, as Lyra walked through the lower market with a box of tools, a loud hum shook the sky. A ship landed. Fast, too fast. Not a trade ship. Not a visitor. It was a control vessel. Armed. Heavy. Government marked. The doors opened and armored guards stepped out. Everyone froze. One guard spoke through a voice box. Lyra of the outer market, come forward. You are charged with spreading unrest. Jace appeared before she could speak. She's done nothing wrong. She's done everything wrong, the guard said. She made people believe they had power. That's dangerous. Jace stepped closer. Then you're afraid of belief? The guard raised a weapon, but Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was steady. You can take me, but you can't unteach what I've taught. You can't make people forget what they've seen. The market was silent, but every eye was watching. Every heart beating fast. The guard paused. His hand dropped slowly from the trigger. He looked at the crowd. They were not running. They were not hiding. They were standing. The guard stepped back. The leader said nothing. Then, without another word, they left. Lyra stood still, breathing hard. She turned to Jace. I thought they dragged me away. He smiled. You gave them a bigger fear than force hope. Later that week, Lyra recorded a message, a short one. No big speech. No fancy words. Just truth. She stood in front of a small camera and said, I was told I was weak, that I didn't matter. But I believed someone when he told me I did. And now I believe it too. If you feel small, if they tell you that you don't count, remember this, you do. And you're not alone anymore. The message was shared across networks, planets, and star stations. People began to rise in places where silence had ruled. Voices began to speak and across the stars. The name Lyra became more than a name. It became a reminder that strength doesn't always come from size, that humans, though few in number out there, still carried an old flame, the fire to protect, to teach, and to believe in others. Jace didn't need credit. He just stood behind her, proud, because Lyra had become something greater than anyone expected. Not a fighter, not a leader, but a spark. And from one spark, a galaxy can change.